Do you consider yourself courageous? What about being a survivor? Have you done a lot of self-work, recovery? Have you faced some tough things? Well, you're going to enjoy my guest today. She goes by Boo, her given name, and I can't wait for you to meet her. If you're a woman, you are someone's daughter, right? And if you are a mother, you might also have a daughter. Well, we're going to be talking about relationships, navigating life and all its challenges and complexities as we journey into the daughtership. This is Hillary Baggett with Hill Talks Momentum in Midlife Podcast, and the whole mission is so that you know that you're not alone. Sometimes we talk health, sometimes wealth, sometimes mindset. Whatever it is, after the age of 40, 50, 60, and beyond, we hope that you know that you are seen, loved, heard, and definitely not alone. Whether you consider yourself Gen X or in midlife, the whole point is that this time of life is not easy, and we can build momentum. And by having conversations with real people, real experiences, even today with this multi-passionate person, Boo Trundle, I know that you are going to feel more encouraged and less alone. Well, we're just going to start out laughing because this is our take two. I was just about to introduce my guest, who is multi-passionate, multi-talented, a true multi-hyphenate. And she is not only a novelist, published author, singer-songwriter, artist, and a mother. And I can't wait to talk to Boo Trundle today. Welcome, Boo.
Thank you. I'm really happy to be here. It's nice to meet you.
It's nice to meet you. And so often we have a desire sometimes to change our name. And I'm just going to start right in with, you go by Boo, and I'd like you to tell me more.
Well, Boo was the name that was given to me when I came out of the womb. It's my grandmother's name, and my real name on my birth certificate is Elizabeth, and her real name was also Elizabeth. So it's one of those weird Southern quirks that people name their children one thing and never have any intention to call them by that name. There were a lot of kids around the neighborhood with names like Muffin and Hoobie and just, all kinds of strange nicknames who all had perfectly legitimate birth certificate names, but that's not what anyone ever called them. So it was sort of my option. I went by Boo all through college. People would occasionally say, do I have to call you that? Or that's very silly, or why are you called Boo? And I just stuck with it because I really felt like that was truly who I was. I never really felt like an Elizabeth. But then when my daughter was born, I switched to Elizabeth in the hospital, before I even came home with my baby, which was a very hormonal decision, I would say. And I was stuck with that for about 12 years. So from the time that my first child was born until she was around 13, I was Elizabeth, never identified with it, always felt like an imposter. And then honestly, what happened is that on my Gmail account, somehow it got back to Boo. And then people started saying, is your name Boo? And I thought, you know what? It is. So it was actually kind of a technical glitch that led me to just go back, maybe go back to who I really was.
Well, I love that. And that's a great transition into women, our identity. And so often, sometimes we want to and need to change our names because the name we were going by no longer suits us. So I love that you reclaimed Boo because that felt right, and released the shame that people are trying to put on you because it's a
little bit silly. It's a little bit silly. But, I think when my daughter was born, I think, I've thought about it. Like there's a couple parts of that experience that I've thought about a lot. Like one of them is, it wasn't premeditated. I had my baby at St. Luke's Roosevelt in New York City. And then, it was email. She's 21. So I had email, but I didn't have a cell phone with me in the hospital with email on it. I don't think. I think it was before that. So I didn't think I had a smartphone, maybe BlackBerry. I don't know. But I went home from the hospital. I sent out a group email. I will no longer answer to Boo. I am going by Elizabeth within, 3 or 4 days of her birth. And I think I just didn't want her to have a mother named Boo. I thought maybe Boo wasn't the right name for someone's mother, or I I had shame around who I was, like my family or how I grew up, and I wanted to disassociate myself from Boo so that I could be a better mother. I mean, I thought about it because it wasn't like I thought about it ahead of time. I just did it, and then once you do something like that, you can't really reverse it. I mean, you can't send an email out to everyone you know saying, "I'm changing my name. Please call me Elizabeth," and then 2 days later say, "Actually, just kidding. I'm going back to Boo." So it was kind of like I had to stick with it.
Well, I love that you gave yourself permission to create some distance between family of origin, who you are now, and then taking it back on your terms, your timing for who you are. And
I do think that's what happened. Yeah.
it is. And sometimes I think we feel like imposters when we give birth. We are a mother, and it's like, oh, well, now I better act like a grown up or sound like a grown up or have a grown up name. And it's like,
yeah, have a grown up name. But Elizabeth is so, I mean, no offense to all the Elizabeths out there. I know Elizabeth is a very classic name. It's a beautiful name, but it's also pretty common. And Boo is so unusual. So it was really weird for me to become sort of one of the army of Elizabeths, having been one of only a few Boos. I mean, I have met other Boos, but it's not very common. And
okay.
people also always shorten Elizabeth to Liz automatically. And so I'm not really a Liz. I mean, if I'm not going to be Elizabeth, I got to be a Boo. And so it created, major identity issues.
Well, I love special names, nicknames, cutesy names. I have many for each of my children. They know exactly the mood I'm in, depending on which one I
really?
use.
Well, what are they?
Well, I call my daughter Peanut or KK. And then my son, I usually call him Poppy. And he used to pop out of bed with this incredible energy. He would just be, I'm awake. And he was ready for the day. And so he knows if I'm calling him Poppy, it's more affectionate. Like I'm never going to be mad using that name, right? Oh.
Well, no, it is true. Around the house, like especially when my kids were little, I never called them by their real name. My daughter's name is Vivian, and I always called her Lulu. So, I mean, why did I not name her Lulu? Who knows?
Well, people who are naming your children out there, you have permission to give them a given name and then to find the name that just feels right for you, right?
Well, yeah. And then there's also how kids will always come up with a name for themselves. Like when I was little, I wanted my name to be Penny. Penny Pender, because Pender was my middle name. So, I made a campaign for that, but I didn't get very far. But kids will sometimes come home and say, I don't like my name. I want to be called, like my son wanted to be called James.
Well, my son's given name is Colin, and that was a battle that I lost because his name that I call him is Cole or Coley. Okay. And when he turned 18, I said, you now have the opportunity to legally change your name to Cole. And he said, I think I need the gentle reminder that that's the one argument Dad won. And
wait, so his dad wanted Cole and you wanted Colin?
Other way. I wanted Cole, and his father said, no, Colin is a real name. I'm like, well, Cole's a real name. And so, anyway. Well, let's transition to talking about your novel then, The Daughtership. What is it about?
Well, The Daughtership, it's funny because when we were talking about identity and motherhood and names, that is actually an element in my novel. So I would say my novel is about a woman in the middle of her life. She's in her 40s, and she's a person who has done a lot of self-work and therapy and recovery because she had a very troubled childhood, but she hasn't kind of gone far enough. And so she's being derailed. She's having a hard time living, even not just thriving, but surviving, because there's things that she hasn't faced about her past. And so really the plot line centers around like, will she have the courage to face the things and heal them, or will she let them, dominate her life and maybe end it?
Yeah. Oh, I can relate so much to that journey and all the deep feelings and questions and the intensity of that. So I think it sounds like your ideal audience might look a lot like me, but do you have someone in mind for whether it's your writing, because you're also published on Medium, and your art, which for those of us if you're catching us on YouTube, you get to see some of her art behind her and a canvas that's her backdrop for what's coming next.
Yeah, well, the canvas is actually just covering my walls, so I don't ruin my walls when I paint, but it's mostly just cover. It looks like a painter's tarp. But so yeah, and also if you're watching on YouTube, I have a YouTube channel. It's super wacky, but I did go through a period. I got divorced when I was 50. Yeah, I'm 56 now, and I made all these crazy videos. So I was doing film art for a while, and I'm also on Instagram. I make a lot of creative, wacky Instagram reels. So yeah, I am a sort of, what did you say at the beginning? A multi-hyphenate. I like that. That's fun. I am definitely a multi-hyphenate. But back to the novel, I guess my ideal audience, the way I describe it is people who, when they're in a bookstore, are torn between the self-help aisle and classic literature. Because it is literary fiction, my novel. It's not, it's a little challenging, it's language based and it has a very unique structure. And I like to say, well, I didn't make this up. Someone who reviewed the book said this, that the book teaches you how to read it. So it's a unique reading experience. It's not a typical reading experience. So it's literature. And so somewhere between classic literature and self-help, because self-help in the sense that I do think it's a healing book, and it's a book about my healing journey, and it's also a book about the main character's healing journey. And I hope that the novel itself, reading it, is a healing experience. So in that sense, but it's not a typical self-help book either. It's somewhere in between.
That's right. Well, and you strike me, Boo. No one's going to put you in a single box, right?
I can't help it.
And that really resonates with me. I am really drawn to discussions with people who are multi-passionate, multi-hyphenate, because some of us just have so many ideas that getting them out there, sharing them with the world is essential to us being true to ourselves. So I love that.
Good. Thanks. Yes, I think I am compulsively expressive.
Well, I would say perhaps consistently
yes.
compelled to express yourself creatively. So
and also determined to express myself.
Yeah. Very
against
much
all
so.
odds and against, in a culture where it's not always encouraged or, financially supported.
Well, very much true. And determination, if you're listening out there, y'all, you might not get through your 40s and 50s without some determination and digging down deep and figuring out who you are. Who was that girl that things happened to that you didn't choose, you didn't plan, you had no control over? And a lot of us have, and it can resonate with so many, have these stories of, well, how do I get over that? How do I let go of that?
Right. I think so. And I think, there's a kind of spectrum really for how our childhood experiences or college experiences or even, early adulthood, how do we process what's happening to us, integrate it, and then move forward in a healthy way. And what I do think is sort of unique about my main character is that she's not a person that ignored any of that. She tried. She's not someone who wakes up in her 40s and is like, oh, you know what? I better do some self-work. She's been doing it all along, but it's just not quite working. And that in a weird way, that kind of raises the stakes because, like, for example, if you're an alcoholic, right, and you just never decided to quit drinking, you just drink and enjoy yourself. And then suddenly you're like, oh, maybe I should quit drinking. And then you go to AA. Let's say it doesn't work. Let's say you try to quit drinking and it doesn't work. Like those stakes are a little higher, because now you're actually trying to stop drinking, but it doesn't work. That's a lot different from just never trying. So it's sort of about the kind of the courage it takes to keep trying.
Yeah. That's the digging deep grit to you're working all along what you're not getting the results you want and you keep trying something different. And some of us, it's what's that tipping point that's going to be, hey, okay, now I need to look at what is not working in my life. And some of the things we have to let go of that are not serving us are things we never thought we would have to let go of, or people we would have to let go of.
Yeah.
And that kind of courage.
Yeah, that's what my book's about.
Yeah. Digging deep.
Yeah. And then like, even, like I'm not to do a spoiler or anything, but like I've done a couple of book clubs, and some of the women are like not on board with some of the choices that the character makes, but like, it takes a lot of courage. And I think that when you're, even as a reader, like, you can have judgment about, who does she let go of and who does she keep, and why.
I just wanted to give you a minute to catch your breath, and also know that this episode is brought to you by the Women's Midlife Network and Community Bloom membership. We are so grateful to bring together amazing women like you to have great conversations, connect, and move forward. If you would like to join women in a Zoom room just once a month to laugh, to connect, then reach out. And now back to our chat with Boo.
And, and I was thinking about that this morning because I have a 17-year-old son and a 20-year-old daughter, and I'm having some challenges this week with my son. And it's like, it feels different, and I'm also divorced, so I'm single, and I'm kind of like, oh my God, I'm having to go through this by myself and, parent him the best that I can. And it's all new. And I'm kind of like, when am I going to be on Easy Street? I think even people who have children in their 20s, then it's a new thing. Or, my mom's in a nursing home, and like now she's 86 and she's got it's very challenging for her. So it's just like, okay, welcome to life. Like, welcome to life.
Well, I agree. Being in this sandwich generation, right? We've got parents that are aging, children who are hopefully finishing high school and maybe moving out. I have some encouragement for you, and I wasn't planning on bringing this up, but I have a younger son as well. And when he was 17, I looked at him and I said, listen, buddy, this is going to be the toughest year between you and I. You believe that you are a grown-up, and it's called individuation. It's a normal stage. You want to make all your choices. You also want to challenge yourself. You have a high risk appetite, as they say, and I do not. For you, I said, my goal is to get you through high school alive, and for you to get to choose what you want to do next in life. And the night before we took him to college, we had a very negative interaction that he told me I would be out of his life forever after tomorrow.
Oh man.
Those
are the words no mother ever wants to hear.
It was like a knife to my heart. Yeah. We were getting ready to go out for sushi, and I said, I can't just go to dinner and pretend like this didn't happen, and didn't get the support that I needed from those around me. And he said, well, if we're not going right now, I'm getting out of the car. I said, that's a really good idea. Get out of the car. I'm going to stop the car. I need to go walk a little bit. And we made it to dinner. The next day we got up and we drove him to college. And I said, your dad can go park the car. And I just quietly unpacked everything, arranged his room, said, hey, I love you so much. And he looked at me and he said, thank you for helping me arrange the room. You're really good at this. And I said, I hope one day you'll see that I was a really good mom, and I'm doing the best I can every single day. So I had so many loving people look at me and say, be encouraged. It gets better. Sometimes it takes 3 months, 6 months, or a year after they leave the home. So if your son has plans to leave the home, hopefully, there's hope for you.
Wait, is that your encouraging story? Because that's kind of a sad story.
Well, let
Can
me
you add a little encouragement?
Well, my son was just home. He's in sophomore year now.
Okay.
And I will say, even by it was not even 2 weeks later after that whole incident. He said, "Oh, hey, can I come home for the weekend?" I said, "Of course." He
Right.
said, "Can I choose what you cook me?" Of course. And so over the healing started very soon after that. I
Okay,
mean,
good.
I also offered to take him to the courthouse for emancipation, but made it clear I was not going to support him financially. That if you're in our house, there are some guidelines. And now for this last Christmas, I mean, not even a year and a half later, he said, "I really enjoyed being home with you guys. I
Aw.
really enjoyed the food, the little bits of engagement and interaction. I enjoyed the freedom to go out and see my friends, but I enjoy coming home." And that was really meaningful because life is pretty stressful around here right now. So
Yeah.
it is hopefully big encouragement, big encouragement.
Yeah. Yeah. So, yeah, my point was just that there's always new challenges, and you can't really predict, what it's going to feel like to be in your 40s or be in your 50s. You have children, you don't know what it's going to feel like to be parenting a teenager. And also I have a teenage daughter, very different from teenage son. Like when I got divorced, I didn't know what it'd feel like to be divorced. Now I have a new boyfriend. I never knew what it'd be like to have a new boyfriend when I'm in my 50s, so there's just always new stuff, and I think that this concept of like keep trying and keep trying hard. And I've always used literature to cope and entertain myself and also find answers. And I hope that my novel offers that, for people.
I really hope so too. And I asked you, what was your fun fact? And this really is encouragement for someone who has a story in them, who maybe said, "Hey, I've got this idea for a book." And you started at what age, Boo?
Well, I started writing fiction in college. So my first novel that I ever tried to get published, that I sent to New York publishers and New York agents was I was 23. So that was 33 years ago.
And you finished and published your first novel then.
When I was 55. So
Amazing.
oh,
Absolutely.
56. No, because the book came out in June. Yeah, 56. So
Well, can you share a little bit with our aspiring authors? Because so many people who listen are like, "Well, yeah, I want to write, but I don't know where to start." What have you learned in the publishing process?
oh my gosh. I have learned so much this last 2 years, because it's kind of a long process. I think I sold a book in 2021, maybe, to the editor. And then after getting rejected for so long, to finally be accepted was such a validating experience. And I've learned, and I think everybody has a different experience with publishing a book, especially depending who you publish it with. I mean, there's all different ways, you could self-publish, but I didn't want to do that. So I, I have a publisher that I really love, and I love my editor. I really love the people on the staff there. And it's a literary imprint. It's called Pantheon, and they are really committed to art, the art in the art of the book, the art of literature. And there was never any pressure for me to turn my book into a bestseller, although I hope it will be a bestseller. And I do my affirmations and my positive visions that it will be a bestseller eventually. But it'll be a bestseller on its own terms. It is what it is. It's a very unique book. And so I think the first thing was just, it was totally worth the wait to find the right publisher that really doesn't want me to be anyone I'm not, or doesn't want my book to be anything it's not. Just totally appreciate it. I feel very seen and very appreciated and very validated. So that's really wonderful. Then, sort of the wild and crazy ride of expectations and the marketplace, and even trying to get the book reviewed, or, there's of course this fantasy that I'm going to wake up and there's going to be a phone call from, Jenna Bush's book club on TV, offering me a spot on the morning show or whatever, that I'm, and there's always a fantasy that it's going to be like that. And then there's the reality of that. There's a lot of books that come out. There's a lot of, I guess what they call it is the attention economy. There's just like only so many books that can be on Jenna's book club or Reese's book club. And there's only so many, books that could be reviewed or books that could be number one on Amazon. So you have to, so what I've really learned, and it's been quite beautiful really, is that this is my path, this is my path. This is my book. My book has its own path. I had, for years I did a lot of positive affirmations and sort of, I want to call it like law of attraction stuff, honestly, just really believing that all good things are going to happen and that everything's always going to work out for me. And I even had a coach I was working with before the book came out, and we would so I would just talk about how it's going to be a bestseller, and it's like, it really has worked for me. Like, I just stay positive no matter what happens, and it doesn't mean I didn't cry when I didn't get a New York Times book review. I really wanted a New York Times book review. I didn't get one. And I have had tears, and there was a really weird wobbly moment right after the book came out where I just felt completely disoriented because it was like my dream had finally come true. And when your dream comes true, it's a bit destabilizing. Now what? Now what? So overall, those are sort of the main, I don't know if that sounds like things I've learned, but I mean, I have learned that staying positive and putting an effort into being positive is as sort of, it sometimes is hard, but you build a muscle and then it's almost impossible for people to knock you down. So I didn't know that was going to happen to me, but I feel like I'm unstoppable. You cannot make me stop believing that my book will be a bestseller.
Absolutely. And I'm believing it for you. And we're not
Thank
even going to
you.
say will, we're going to say the daughtership
Is a bestseller.
is a bestseller. That's right. Because it's going to get out there. And I love the courage that it takes to submit to a publishing house for your first novel and to get
well,
accepted.
I've done that a bunch of times. This is the fourth novel that I have tried to get published. So
okay.
It's just the first one that they said yes to. So there you have it.
And that's the encouragement of that. Expect that your first 20 or 50 people are going to say no.
Or 500.
500. Is that how many?
Probably.
Okay.
I mean, if I think about all the different stages this book went through and all the, I started in my 20s. I started looking for an agent in my 20s. And so I had a huge stack of rejections just trying to find an agent. And then, so if you count that, right, then I found an agent, and then this is my third novel that we've submitted. And each of those novels she probably, at least the first two, she sent to 40 to 50 publishers. So yeah, it's pretty high up there. I mean, at least over 200.
Yeah.
And that's okay. I mean, and yeah, I think you did say, what advice would you give to people who are writers? I mean, mostly that, in order to be a writer, all you have to do is write. That's all you have to do every day, or every day that you feel like it. I don't even think you have to write every day, but just keep at it and do it for the love of it. And I just learned so much about myself along the way, and I still am. And, writing it's the kind of thing that a lot of people can write, because we learn to write. A lot of us learn to write in elementary school. We have to write essays. We have to write fictional things as kids, make up stories. Then we're in junior high school. In high school, we read novels for school. So writing, it feels like everybody has a basic knowledge of well, I could do that because I can write. But it's not really like that, because every time you write another draft, you get closer and closer to your story and closer to your voice. So it takes a lot longer than you might think to be able to write a good book.
It does. It takes so much effort. I finished my first rough draft and am just starting that editing process and looking for someone. So I think someone else I just talked to, they said, well, I published a book, but the marketing is a huge part of it, of how do you get your message out there? How many podcasts are you a guest on? How many shows do you try to get on? So many opportunities. Well, you've taught us so much. I am going to try to recap a little bit. Okay. So, Boo, you reclaimed your identity and your true name. First, you released it, and then you reclaimed it in your timing. And you have woven in to your novel, The Daughtership, the elements of coming into your own voice in the character in the 40s, and about the self-work and recovery and how to get from that surviving to thriving with that deep courage to really face those past hurts, those patterns, that frustration of why haven't I learned this yet? And that continuing to persevere. It sounds like your ideal audience are people that kind of like the self-help, but they want to really have that rich, deeper draw into literary fiction, which is a little intimidating for someone like me. I'm like, ooh, I don't think of myself as a literary writer, but I love that you say, hey, this book is going to teach you how to read it. And you shared so much of this long process, persevering through rejections from agents, publishing houses, and you're really getting there and you're feeling accepted and validated for your unique voice. Oh my goodness. You did caution us certainly on expectation management, the marketplace, reviews. I'm going to speak it out there that I hope that either Reese's book club or Jenna Bush Hager is looking for your book for the voice. And Reese might be a better fit because I think she's about in our age range, give or take a few years.
She's a wee bit younger than me, but yes.
Wow, I learned so much, and I'm so grateful to you. And apologies to the listeners for my emotions getting the best of me. Boo Trundle, it's been a pleasure.
Thank you, Hillary. It was really fun to talk to you, and I really appreciate your openness and your emotional presence. You just seem very present and very engaged. So I want to thank you for that. It's really good to talk to you. And yeah, the best place to find me is on Instagram. I also have TikTok. And I'm kind of on all the platforms, all the social media platforms. So any of those platforms would be a funnel to get back to my website where you can buy the book, or you can just buy it on Amazon or at Barnes & Noble. It's everywhere. So it's called The Daughtership. And, I just hope that if you do read it, that you get as much out of it as I did writing it.
I love it. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
I'm so grateful that you're listening, that you're sharing, that you're writing reviews, and it just helps the podcast grow. So many people are surprised that I'm still doing this after coming into my 4th year, but I love highlighting stories and supporting other women. Have a good one. Music brought to you by March of the Dragonflies by Belmont Club. And quick disclaimer, this is not intended to be medical or healthcare advice. Please consult with your physician, osteopath, or healthcare provider before choosing what's right for you. Again, I will not give financial advice either, but I can point you in the directions of the trusted professionals that you can listen to. This is Hillary Baggett with Hill Talks Podcast. Thanks so much for listening. And as always, I hope you hear the love.